Hey everybody, welcome to Craft Services with HedgieCleric. I am, of course, HedgieCleric, the crafting game designer nerd who runs this place. And these poor friends of mine who are here today are Alexandra friend Clinton, who is the main author around the Deittman Files RPG. And we also have Terry Crew, who is the lead editor on the project. So first of all, hi, hi.
Hi.
How's everybody doing today?
Oh, good, good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I am in fact doing quite well. I'm gonna do some quick tweaks on things over here on my end to make sure the audio is working correctly. Uh, oh, that's why I'm getting that echo. I haven't opened another window. Oops. But yeah, so today we're here specifically to talk about the game that you just released on Kickstarter just a couple weeks ago, and kind of where you got the ideas to start this out, like some of your ideas behind the design, some of your own real life experiences that inspired the actual game itself, and just more about y'all.
Yeah, we're happy to be here to talk about that. It's very
Awesome.
exciting.
Yeah. So, first of all, this is also a crafting stream. So, what are you working on today while you're here?
Um, most of my crafts, I am a sewer. I like to make costumes and stuff. So it's a lot of big projects. Some with some LARPs that I'm attending. Hopefully the next couple months. So that's all like a little too
Uh-oh.
time. Part of my Kickstarter rewards for certain tiers is a signed hardback of the book that inspired the Deittman Files.
Cool.
And I figured I can take some time to start signing and inscribing some for some of the backers.
That's
So that
fantastic.
it'll all get shipped out on time.
Very cool. So, just to kind of get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the world and where you got the inspiration for the book that inspired the game in the first place? Um,
Sure. So as I showed, the Deittman Files is based on the world of Echoes and Ashes, a paranormal mystery. I released it last year, 2 weeks before the world shut down. That was not a good time to release a book because there were no book talks, no nothing. Everything I had was canceled.
oh
So
no.
bad time to try to start to release something. But that's okay. I had actually started writing that book in like 2016, I think,
Okay.
for NaNoWriMo. And
Isn't that how most projects like that start?
yeah, yeah, it really is. And even then, NaNoWriMo, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Never did it. Finally, 2016, I sat down, I did it, and I busted out about 2/3 of the book. Um, but sometimes I have problem finishing things that are for like my own benefits, like books and video games. Like I really like to leave like the last chapters just unread.
Oh
It's a
no.
real problem, but it's like, oh, the story doesn't end if I just don't finish it, you know? Like
Yeah,
so
but that's not a really but then at that point you need to make sure you get the word out to the rest of the world that this story is going on. You have to, if you
oh
still
yeah,
have
oh
something out
yeah, it's
unfinished.
that is what normal people would do, sure. But I have a problem where I'm like, I just don't want the story to end, so I just won't finish reading, or I won't finish the video game if I just don't finish it. So finally, my husband was like, "So are you going to like actually finish that, or what?" That was 2019. He said that, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you know what? I should just do that. So the next NaNoWriMo came up and I finished it, and I had some friends go through and edit, and then I ended up releasing it. It was on a very abbreviated timetable because my goal was to get it out before I was 30. So
Oh
the
wow.
official release date was on my 30th birthday. And like I
Oh,
said,
that's a
two
great birthday
weeks
present for yourself there.
it was
That's
it was
fantastic.
I had all of these great plans, and 2020.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, no. I
yeah,
absolutely understand.
so that was the inspiration.
That's cool.
And
Uh-oh.
throughout my extra time at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of hit a stopping point with that where I'm like, I just don't know where I want to go. I don't know where I want to finish. Um, but Terry and I had been playing a lot of Modern Gods games at that point, and I thought, well, I could just write one, I
There
could
you
just
go. Yeah.
make my own.
Yeah. Do it.
And yeah, so I thought about it and I thought, I already have an entire like world that I've created. I already know like all of the lore behind it. I know how all the stuff would work. So I just figured I'm gonna make it the Deittman Files.
There you go.
And Dr. Deittman is a recurring character who will be throughout the whole series. So the game focuses on the idea that players will act as consultants who work for him and go out
Mm-hmm.
and investigate locations when he can't. So he's the man behind the curtain who gets all of the calls, all of the referrals, but then he contacts the players to go out and do the legwork for him. And yeah, that's basically the premise and how it all tied together.
Very cool.
And Terry has been very supportive and helped me through this to get it done very quickly so that we could get the launch up and done, pretty much within, let's see, I think we made the decision in January that we were going to do this. And I had the first draft done at the end of January. Um, and I think we originally talked about maybe an April launch, but to give the artist more time, we decided to push it back till May. Uh, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we've been working on. In about 3 months, we decided to do this.
Oh wow, that's a really short turnaround time.
Yeah, when we set
Yeah.
The
our
other
minds to
really
something, we do it.
No kidding. Terry, my God, that must have been a heck of a crunch from an editing standpoint. I can only imagine. I've done editing work in the role playing game industry before, and like that's insane.
we had a Google just one of those Google pages opened up and you could see comments going back and forth all day long. It was quite hilarious. But
I
when
yeah, I
it's a
can imagine.
passion that you're really interested in, I feel like everything comes natural.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, I
And when
know.
we talk about passion, Terry and I also, the reason we did this and why he's been helping me in particular is that he and I like to go ghost hunting and we go
Oh,
together frequently when we can. So like that's also why it really is for both of us. It is
oh my
a
gosh.
world we're very passionate about. So
Okay, so now we have to talk about the ghost hunting thing. We absolutely have to. I know that is it's a basic you're actually coming at this from real life experience. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
several of the classes in the game have direct ties to like the equipment and things that you would use on a real paranormal investigation.
Oh, pardon me. I had a minor OBS oops. Pay no attention to the floating camera overlays. That's how you know we're doing it live, folks. It's
It's true. It's true.
absolutely true. But yeah, so okay. So how did you get into ghost hunting in the first place?
I'll let Terry go first because I've done a ton of talking. So
So I got involved from an ad on Craigslist that said, "Would you like to be part of a paranormal TV show?"
I actually had no idea about this. I'm learning this for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I could be a TV star. I had watched Ghost Adventures so many times, and if so,
What's up,
it's
demons? It's me,
pretty
your
neat.
boy.
Like the stuff that's on these shows is just fun to watch. And I thought,
For
okay, I
sure.
could really do this. So I went, and it turned out to be this guy who was in college, and he wanted to do like a project, and
Hmm.
had these hopes and aspirations of it becoming big. Of course, never did. He paid us some pizza, um,
I
but it was still
mean,
it seemed fair.
pizza, like, don't knock pizza. It's not how you should pay your creatives, for sure. Absolutely pay your creatives in money. But food is a second choice. It's a distant
Well,
second choice, but it's a choice.
food and good times.
Oh
So
yeah,
eventually I was
food and
like, okay,
adventure.
this obviously it's not going to pan out to be a job, but I can still have a lot of fun doing it. And so that's how I really got involved in it.
That's really cool. And Alex, what about you? Did you just kind of like come along for the ride later on, or how did that work?
Well, so first of all, I'm in Pittsburgh, and
Okay.
Terry, did all of that start happening for you in Florida?
Florida.
Oh wow.
So, and what year did you start doing that? So I started ghost hunting in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I've been doing this for 13 years.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so I we have very different backgrounds with how we got into this.
For sure. How
Terry
about
has
you?
done a lot more, I think, in a very short amount of time. I decided I've always had like a love of the paranormal and the supernatural, from like all TV shows and everything. And I
For
decided
sure.
when I was a senior in high school, I was gonna do my senior project with a ghost hunt. And apparently I was not the first person to try to do it, but I was one of the first people to get it approved.
Oh
So
wow. Yeah.
I decided I wrote my paper on the psychology of mass hysteria, and I'm like, I'm gonna go ghost hunting. And you
Mm-hmm.
see, I'm not
And
trying to prove
that's
ghosts are real. I'm just gonna document everybody's reaction. And they're like, okay, yeah, yeah, sure, that's fine. That's legit. Like, yeah, definitely legit. It's not because I just want to go ghost hunting.
well, yeah.
So yeah, so that's what we did. We went ghost hunting at a local tourism building that was like a funeral parlor turned towards a building that we had a connection to. They let us in. So I started that. And then from there, I just started looking for like more opportunities. And in my area, there were a couple like organized events with some local paranormal teams. And eventually I was like, I can just do this myself. So in about, I think 2013, I think, I branched out from doing like these group events where other people would organize them, and I started just doing them myself, where I would book a location, I would take my friends, and I had slowly started acquiring equipment. And I
Okay.
had some access to some very um all legal. I will only go to places where I can book it myself and I can be there, and I'm not at risk at anybody coming, and there shouldn't be anybody else on the premise. Like, that's the only way I'll do it.
That makes a
But
lot of
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
oh yeah, we have a story about that, Terry and I. So I started doing that, and I've been lucky enough that I've been able to go to some of the most haunted places in the country. One of my
Mm-hmm.
claims to fame is that I did get to go and investigate at Lep Castle in Ireland, which is
Okay.
supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the world.
Oh wow.
It
Yeah.
was so much fun. I had severe bronchitis, and it was not scary, but it was fun.
Yeah,
Um,
no. Well, I imagine the bronchitis is probably scarier than the actual
yeah, it really,
event.
really was. It really
Oh.
was. And then I team, and I could say I was a professional ghost hunter because I actually got paid to go ghost hunting. So
That's really
I
cool.
could say legit professional ghost hunter.
That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, so when they say write what you know, that's what I did.
That absolutely sounds like it for sure.
Hmm.
I think I'm running into a couple of small difficulties from the look of it. It's been like a couple little small connection hiccups.
Hmm.
Um, it's okay now, but if it does continue, we'll go on a short break and I'll make some tweaks on my end to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. But
Okay.
that's how you know we're doing it live. I work at a tech company for my day job, and that's something they always say about demos. It's like if something goes wrong, that's how you know you're doing it live, and that's how it actually, works.
True.
That's and that's really fantastic. So what kind of equipment would you take onto something like that? Like everyone's seen like a lot of the reality TV shows, and we also know that reality TV, as much as it says it's unscripted, is scripted and edited to high heaven, specifically to make good television. So like what kind of equipment, like what does a normal excursion like this look like?
Well, I'm glad you asked because right here I have some equipment to share with you.
Fantastic. I
So
can't see it just yet because of your background, but yeah, let's take a look.
check for like temperature differentials.
Okay.
So like if you scan in a corner and it drops by 30 degrees and there's no logical or reasonable reason for it, that can tell you that you might have the evidence of the paranormal there.
That's fantastic.
But I think before we get into the equipment, really, one of my favorite things just about paranormal investigations, ghost hunting, whatever you want to call it, is the history of it. So knowing that there are some claims to a specific place, I love to go to local libraries to interview people and get to know, like, what is the history. Investigations that I ever did was at a place called Ashley's Tavern, and it's in Cocoa, Florida. And there was supposed to be a haunting there from a woman that had died years before, but you could actually talk with like her descendants and go to the local library and pull newspaper articles from like the 1920s.
Oh, wow.
And stuff like that I find really incredible. But here's another piece of investigation. This is a K2 meter. It measures EMF.
Okay.
It's his favorite. It's called an ovulus.
I do. I love the ovulus.
So what exactly does that do? I've never seen one of those before.
It takes environmental readings and kind of like will randomly give you words or phonetic sounds. So if I turn it on now, I don't know if you could hear that, but it says dictionary mode. And then if anything changes in the environment or the atmosphere, so it just said the spirit went quizzical. And it will randomly continue to throw out words. It's probably because I'm shaking it and things that we're getting more activity than normal. But generally what you would do is put it down.
Put it down, put it somewhere solid where you're not going to have a lot of other disturbances. I had a moment there. I was like, wait a minute. Terry, where are you?
Turns out, Terry, your new apartment is haunted.
I went into a closed down murder. And I was like, where's everybody else? Because I don't want to be alone right now.
No, that's legit. I wouldn't want to be alone either. That's wow. That's fantastic. So
there's lots of little fun things. Like this is a geophone.
Okay.
So what it does is it measures vibrations of like things walking.
Okay.
So like if you hear footsteps, for example, it might get caught on that.
Interesting.
So there's all these little pieces of equipment that you can find from other industries. Like the what's that IR camera? Brought one before, Alex.
The thermal?
Yeah, the thermal camera.
Yeah, I have access to a very nice thermal camera. It's not mine. I don't own it, but I do get to borrow it. I'm not taking it though. Tara and I actually in 2 weeks now. We're going to go to Moundsville Penitentiary and very excited for that. It'll be my first jail. But it's certain equipment you just sort of have to learn their best uses. So like a thermal is going to be useless there because it's going to reflect off of all of the metal and give us false readings. So I'm not going to take it because that's what I know that camera will do.
Right.
But I have my husband, for usually anniversary or birthday, he makes it a habit of getting me ghost hunting equipment.
Oh,
and
sweet.
He does not like ghost hunting. He knows I like ghost hunting.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so
and having separate interests from like your partners or what have you, but them still really supporting it is like some of the best things.
It's very
in the world.
nice.
Yeah.
So he got me recently an SLS camera, which if anybody watches like Ghost Adventures or anything, it's the stick figure cam. And I am so excited because I love it. It's ridiculous. I get so excited when a stick figure pops up. It's basically like a modified Kinect, like Xbox Kinect, that sends out like a grid, and you can see, like, supposedly if something were to cross, it can create a figure so you can see where movement is. And it's just hilarious and ridiculous, and I love it so much. So I get really excited when we get to use that. Terry, do you have your new piece to show off?
Uh-oh.
The geophone.
Oh, is that the you called it the necrophone, I think, whenever we talked.
Necrophone. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
I'm really
something new
excited
that
for
I just picked up. You can't really quite see it. There we go.
Very cool.
So
Power on.
it flashes different
Bluetooth.
colors as things get closer, and it will actually tell you
USB.
different words.
His eyes are not spiraling relations.
So you can imagine haunted in complete darkness and having this thing going, and it's spurred different words that you piece together to give you evidence along with other pieces of equipment.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's the really cool thing about like the Deittman Files, though, is because we can incorporate those different pieces of equipment into the same game.
That's really cool. So I'm going to take a short break. It should be maybe 2 minutes while I troubleshoot some connection issues on my side. Because it is starting to cut in and out, and I got your internet connection is unstable flashy message on my screen. So let me go ahead and fix that, and then we will be right back.
Sounds good.
All right. And we're back. Sorry about that, y'all. Apparently, my internet decided it was going to be a little bit problematic. And so I went troubleshooted some things, found a cable that wasn't quite plugged in all the way. And so hopefully that should fix things. And now we can actually kind of dive into more of the role playing game and also the book that inspired the role playing game. So, why don't you tell us a little bit of the story about Echoes and Ashes and kind of where the actual role playing game piece of it ends up fitting in?
Sure. So Echoes and Ashes, it's written from the third person limited of a character named Eli. The book starts off, and it's something I think a lot of us can relate to, unfortunately, is he loses his job right off the bat, which causes a change in medication for him, because healthcare system. He has an ability that has him seeing what's called echoes, or what I call echoes. He's what those in the industry might call it post-cognitive, which means he sees images of the past. Typically, the idea that you could touch something or be in an area and you can just see an image of the past. It's not like seeing ghosts necessarily. It's just because it's like an image replaying that you interact with.
Okay.
And so he has suffered from seeing these things, the echoes, all of his life. They're often very terrible. They're often the worst moments in people's lives that he has to see. Nobody else can see them. And he finds it very hard to live with without being able to get the proper medication, which helps him suppress those. And it sort of sends him spiraling because at this point he's in his 30s, he has a family to take care of, and his life is just sort of falling apart. So one thing leads to another, and he meets Dr. Deittman, who is a parapsychologist from Europe, and he's putting together a team of psychics to go and investigate a local area. So with the promise of a couple $1,000s for a long weekend, he agrees to go, and he meets the Deittman team as well as some other psychics. And they are in an abandoned asylum for the weekend. one thing leads to another, chaos ensues. I don't want to give it away, obviously. But yeah, that's the whole thing of it. So for people who like a little bit of a mystery with some paranormal aspects, might be for them. It's a pretty quick read. And it's just that one is from his point of view, but the recurring characters for the book series are actually Dr. Deittman and some of his team. So
cool.
what we did was we took that. Actually, if you look at Terry's background, the main character of Eli is the dark-haired young man in the picture. Yeah, that side. That's Eli from the main character from the book. He's the post-cognitive. Above him, you can't really see, but that is Ash, our pyrokinetic. Dr. Deittman is directly behind Terry's head. And the woman doesn't come into a later book. But yeah, so that's Dr. Deittman right there on the cover. So the premise then of the Deittman Files is that you create a psychic or an investigator who will go out and research a location for him. And in our play tests, my husband will often play Dr. Deittman. I have played Ash. I have played Marcus, who you also can't see, but he's wearing that suit above Dr. Deittman.
So,
And yeah.
quick note: the actual cover of the book is on the stream, so everybody can kind of
Oh, good.
everybody
Right,
see the whole cover. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes. So yeah, so that's those are some of the characters from the book one and some from later. And
Book one.
yes, that's what
Oh.
the whole like role-playing game is based off of. You could recreate the characters from the books. You could also recreate characters from other popular like TV shows and movies. This is very heavily influenced by, there was a miniseries from I think 2000, 2001, called, I think it was 2001, 2002 actually, called Rose Red. And
Okay.
it was a Stephen King miniseries. He was asked if he wanted to do his version of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, A Haunting.
Mhm.
And he said no, that he didn't want to go ahead and do his own version. But Rose Red is pretty much his own version. So
Right.
if you're a fan of like the Hill House stuff, that it's a really good miniseries. It is very hard to find though, and I bought 2 sets of DVDs because it's one of my favorite things. And I knew that if I ever lost the DVDs, I would never be able to get them again.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, but I'm very heavily inspired by that. It's one of my favorite things.
Fantastic. Oh, and we've got some more followers coming in. Thank you, Crow Gargoyle. We also had Havoc HD
Oh,
follow earlier. And there's actually been a specific request for a certain recurring NPC, as it were, to make its appearance on stream. That would be Philip. Uh,
go for it, Terry.
All right. Here's Philip.
That's adorable. That's
You
terrifying, but also adorable. I love it.
Yeah, tell everybody the story behind Philip.
So the character that I play typically in the Deittman Files when I play it, and we've done play testing, is a 10-year-old kid who has psychic powers, and he carries around a teddy bear, which is named Philip. He loves chicken nuggets, and whenever bad things happen, or whenever he looks for advice from the people around him, because he's so misunderstood, his best friend is Philip. So Philip the cat tells him what to do. So Philip has had a very sordid past, and yeah, he may or may not be possessed. That's up to interpretation.
Yes, because
Sure.
the possessed child's toy is exactly what we all need in our lives.
Uh-huh. But yeah,
So
we've just had a lot of fun with the play testing. We've had so many laughs.
that's
And
fantastic.
this is what I like about the system is that depending on your group, you could go as lighthearted or as dark as you want. This could be a nice investigation game, or
Mm-hmm.
you could go full on horror mode if you wanted. It really like it depends on the players and the GM. And I think that this system lends itself nicely to that in a way that others don't necessarily, because what I have found with other investigation based games is a lot of them lean very heavily into like the nitty gritty kind of world.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that. I just wanted to go solve mysteries. And yeah, we've done just that, and we've had a lot of fun. So I hope other people can kind of take it and mold it to the game that they want and report back.
So you could take a very kind of Scooby-Doo feel to this if you want to.
Absolutely. You absolutely could be the Scooby Gang if you wanted, both in the Buffy sense and the actual Scooby-Doo sense.
That's
So, like you could do a lot of what I run for the playtesting is one night sessions of just like a one night mystery. And then it's reoccurring characters. So the same team tends to come back time and time again for our playtests. But it's like a different mystery each time.
That makes sense. Yeah. I did back the Kickstarter. For
Oh,
those of you
thank
here
you.
in the chat, there is a link to their Kickstarter in the About section below, so feel free to check that out. And I've been seeing kind of some of the different adventures and whatnot pass by, and it looks
Yes.
like you're adding new stuff by the day, by each stretch goal, just making it over and over and over again. That's really exciting to see.
Yes, yeah, we've been so overwhelmed with the support. We're so glad that people have been liking it as much as they have. We'll probably be looking to add on some new stretch goals because we just crossed another threshold today.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so we hit our 4,500 mark.
Nice.
So at this point, our stretch goals have also opened a compendium of maps, which will be for GMs to use to help get some game stuff going. And then we have 3 one night sessions that we have unlocked that we're going to
Very
create.
cool.
The first one is Bunny Bridge, which is based off of the urban legend, the Bunnyman Bridge. We've kind of altered it so that it is more fictional and should have some more twists and turns for people who know the urban legend. The second one is the Maple Hill Asylum, which is in fact the setting for Echoes and Ashes. So we'll have a mystery that's loosely based on that book. It won't be the plot of the book, so it will be different for people who are familiar with it. And then we've also unlocked the Donovan Estate, and the Donovan Estate is actually our setting for book 2. And it's an Irish castle.
Very cool.
So we're hoping that that will offer some interesting setting kind of ideas for people. So we've unlocked those 3. We're on our way to unlocking our special spirit class.
Oh my.
Sorry, I got a tickle. We have a special spirit class that we're about to unlock, hopefully. And that one is for any character who faces character death, or if they want just kind of play hard mode and start with the spirit. We've played in other Powered by the Apocalypse games that have kind of left us wondering, like, what happens when your character dies?
That makes sense. And that's really fitting with the particular themes of this game anyway, so it makes a lot of sense.
100%. The other big thing that I think we're bringing to the table is a Discord channel where if you're looking to join games or participate, like you're welcomed into kind of like a family. And I think that's how LARP really integrates with this whole project.
Yes.
I always have a horrible habit of like taking on more than I can chew. So that's why Alex and I work really well together.
I understand that all too well, considering I have a Mystical Rome one shot I'm going to be doing tomorrow, and basically leading right up to this stream. This one pretty much ran itself for the most part, because y'all are great. You got me everything I needed in time, and I was able to set up everything pretty quickly. But I am literally like running around like a chicken with my head cut off in the background, setting up for stuff for tomorrow. So I understand that entirely. Welcome to the club. There's the crying
Yes.
there's the crying couch in the corner. There's plenty of snacks in the fridge.
Oh, snacks.
Yeah.
That's actually one of our moves. I brought snacks.
That's amazing.
Yes, it's from our intern class, and I was just saying we just posted the art for it on our Facebook page, and I was just saying how much I just love the intern class because it's just so much fun and
Yeah. So
versatile.
yeah. So tell us about some of the classes that you're going to encounter in the Deittman Files.
Oh geez, I should have had a list pulled up ahead of time. Let's see if
That's
I can remember them
okay.
all.
If
Do
you
you
need,
want to do the investigator and I'll do the psychic ones?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna count down here. So wait, I'm doing investigator, you're doing psychic. Is that what you just said? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm ready.
You go first.
All right. So you have the clairvoyance. The clairvoyance is like to choose and see the future. So different things like that. One of my favorite abilities is actually called see the future. So at the beginning of like a specific scene, you roll a couple of dice and it gives you the ability to like have the item that you need right when you need it,
Nice.
which is super useful.
Oh yeah.
There's the post cognitive, which has that like almost cursed ability to see the past. So kind of like how Alex was talking about in her book, the main character would see the things that happened from the past.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a move called Echoes of the Past, and you can go into a room, roll some dice, and see glimpses of what happened there. There
Nice.
is the telepath.
Mm-hmm.
So in people's mind, making them think the things that you want. Super beneficial when you are trying to convince people that you need chicken nuggets to sustain your life.
I actually had chicken nuggets for lunch today, so it's particularly funny for me right now.
The psychograph, personally as a GM, one of my favorites because there is something in there for like automatic writing.
Oh, nice.
If you're not familiar with it, automatic writing is when you put your pen to the paper and you just draw what you feel or what you're influenced with. So, GMing a session, I just recorded myself drawing something, knowing that someone was going to use this ability, and it was super cool to just drop a short video into our Discord channel
Very
so
cool.
the psychograph could see what she was actually drawing.
That's
There,
really awesome.
there's a medium, telekinetic, an exorcist, which could be super fun to play, and more of a combat related one, a pyrokinetic.
Yeah, no. No, kill it with fire is absolutely an appropriate move. I don't know if that's what the move is
100%.
actually called, but you know, if you need it, free to good home.
Um, then we have on the investigator side, and I had to look it up because I couldn't remember one of them, and I'm not gonna make a fool of myself on live stream. Uh, so the investigator classes, so the psychic classes, they're very heavily, with the psychic stat. The investigators are very much knowledge based and in some cases charisma based. There are usually companion moves. Like the one where Terry said, having exactly what you need when you need it. There's one of those on the investigator move list as well. So you can typically find something similar between the two. But the way you use them is kind of more like, like one is, oh, we're using our psychic powers to do this, and one is more of we're using our knowledge to do this. Science,
For sure.
So the investigators are the researcher, which is a very popular class because it has a lot of very useful things. This is kind of based off of if you see like ghost hunters, like more like those
Mm-hmm.
kind where we're going to go in and we're going to ask questions. We're not going to go freak out running,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to go and do some research ahead of time, something more like that. Um, the charlatan, which I think is a very interesting class. To me, it is the YouTube star who, like, did you just touch me? And go running for the camera. You know what I mean? You're a
Mm-hmm.
little more of an actor.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the skeptic who we were just playing with and is a very unique class to have with your team. The skeptic is someone who does not believe, and they believe so strongly that nothing could possibly be real that they have a tendency to negate some stuff around them.
Oh my.
And it's hilarious to play when you're with a team of psychics to have someone who says, I don't care if you just threw a fireball, it's not real. So
Fantastic.
it was a lot of fun playing with someone today, actually.
Very cool.
Um,
And you actually just got another Kickstarter backer here in the chat.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support. Insatia the original, thank you.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so we have the Benefactor, who is very much based off of Dr. Deittman. The Benefactor is the person who comes in. They're often funding the entire expedition.
Mm-hmm.
They have some interesting moves based around charisma and wealth. The Engineer, one of the things that people don't realize with ghost hunting and paranormal investigation is that someone has to make all of the equipment you use, and
Mm-hmm.
you often can't just go on to Amazon and buy. I mean, you can, some of them you really can, but a lot of the good stuff I totally just bought a spirit box. But some of the good stuff, you have to go to someone who makes this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a class for that. We have an engineer, and their specialty is creating the stuff that you're going to investigate with.
Yeah, and
We
that's
also
it's kind of like a Q branch and kind of in a James Bond setting.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. You
that
need
makes
someone
a lot
back
of
there
sense to
coming
me
up with it.
personally because I imagine there's a lot of specialized equipment involved, and while there is some stuff that's commercially available, if you have a really unique use case, you're like, okay, I kind of want it to do this, but I also want it to do X, Y, and Z as well, and but it's not like, and it's not something you can immediately get. But if you have somebody who has enough science to make it happen,
Exactly.
there you go.
Yeah. We also have the muscle. The muscle is actually based off of another character in Echoes and Ashes. He's a former army vet. And he got into ghost hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, he's a mix of the researcher and the muscle. But we should really tell the story when we're done, Terry, about what happened at Lake Shawnee. But the muscle is someone who is often there as your backup in case something goes wrong, and
And you
things
do,
do go
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
So that's an interesting class for someone who's like, I want to play someone involved, but they're not really sure where they fall on the belief spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be there to, smack some people around if things get out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
then,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was actually about to say, I imagine there's probably got to be someone there as well who has at least some sort of medical training just in case things go completely pear-shaped. But I don't know if that's something you've built in as like
It's a
that's
move.
yeah, that's what I
Yes,
thought.
yes,
Yeah.
it is a move. So there's a couple people who have like medkit abilities built in
Mm-hmm.
that you can take. Um, but combat should not be too heavy. But there are ways to heal. So yeah, we have that built in for the case that something does go wrong. And then of the core classes, we have the intern, who, as I was saying, I just love the intern because they're very well rounded and fun. Also based off of a character in Echoes and Ashes, Carlos, who is on the cover with the headphones. We have another class that we actually added.
Carlos.
I
Carlos is
just
a
love him. He
favorite.
is a cinnamon bun. He is such a sweetheart. I just love him. But the hunter we added on through the Kickstarter
Oh,
because we
cool.
have a guest author, Michael OJ, who is working on his own game, Modern Gods.
Cool.
And so he created this class for us.
Oh, cool.
And it is very much hunter in the supernatural sense, like in the you want to play Samardine Winchester. So
Very
it is a fun class. We
Mm-hmm.
have another one that he's looking to add on if we hit some stretch goals, and then we're hoping very soon that we will have the spirit unlocked to add on.
Very
So
cool.
should be fun, I think.
Yeah.
So
So it sounds like you got a lot of the focus is going to be kind of on your standard run-of-the-mill normal human being who's kind of soft and squishy if they're not paying attention closely, but they have a lot of other talents elsewhere,
yes.
with some obviously with some psychic capabilities, and then obviously spirit class coming up. um what other kind of supernatural creatures do you think would potentially populate this world, either as additions to this particular game or potentially in future books, without giving too
So
much away, of course?
no. So the book is the way it's designed is in this game, the GM doesn't ever rule. So having monsters and creatures with stats is really unnecessary because you can pretty much come up with them on the fly and
Okay.
have your players make an attack or make a defense and see how it succeeds.
Right.
So it's really up to the GM which we'd like to put into it. So far, Terry, what are some of the things we've faced? We've had the demonic bunny.
Just your standard ghost, demons,
We had your evil clowns.
a hag.
We did have a hag. One, we're in the middle of solving the mystery that someone else is running for us right now, and we think we're
Cool.
going up against maybe a telekinetic
Okay.
that
Mhm.
might be actually our enemy. So, but theoretically you could go against anything. Like someone could
Okay.
literally have Mothman fighting you if you wanted, and
Mothman.
you don't need stats. All you need to do is a lot health and have your players roll to see if they succeed in avoiding damage. And you can decide what they're doing. So, Mothman can come and hit them with his wing or give them a psychic blast.
That's
It's
fair.
whatever you
Yeah.
want. That's what
Yeah.
I really love about the system.
Yeah. And yeah, I've actually one of the next questions I was going to ask is specifically why you decided to go with Powered by the Apocalypse. For those who aren't familiar, this is basically the same engine that basically it started out with Apocalypse World, which is kind of everyone's favorite baby when it comes to a lot of indie RPGs, and as far as really smooth, simple systems, it's really easy to pick up and play.
Yes.
And then they kind of stripped it down to its framework specifically for other games to use a similar system, and it's obviously got more open licensings for games like specifically like the Deittman Files to be made. So when you were initially coming up with the idea of releasing this as a game, did you already know that you wanted to go with that particular system, or were you thinking of other options as well?
Yeah, I had known right off the bat that this was the system I wanted to use because I had been playing with Terry. I was running a game that was crazy, absolutely off the walls, bonkers. That was a crossover style game, kind of like Kingdom Hearts with world hopping.
Right.
And that game was called Interstitial.
Okay.
And it was so easy to pick up and learn. I had players who hadn't played any sort of tabletop game in over 10 years be like, oh, I don't know. They looked at it and they said, oh, never mind, this is easy, I'll play. I had brand new players to like role-playing games who had never played who picked it
Mhm.
up, and that's what I really loved
Nice.
about it, was how easy it was for new players. And we did everything online. This game system worked really well playing online. So in the year 2020, it just showed to be, the best system in my opinion. So I knew right from the bat that this was what I was going to do, because it was so very user friendly.
Telling
That's
that perfect
fantastic.
story. It
Mm.
allows you to say, okay, the rules are here. We're going to use these as like the vehicle that we travel in. But
Mhm.
here's the core of our story that's easy to tell and we
Mhm.
can really focus on.
That's
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
definitely it's great for a very collaborative narrative story while having some mechanics to use as your guideline. And in this Indictment Files, I will say repeatedly, like, GM discretion. Like, if
Mhm.
I want people to, you know, change it and alter it to the way that fits you and your game. I'm just giving you the basis for it.
Absolutely. And that's something that I personally love. Like there's absolutely opportunities for, canon and meta plot and world building and all of these things, but ultimately when you sit down at a table, it's whatever the heck you and your friends you want to do. Like um I know basically I'm going to go back to an old example. Anytime that I go and play Vampire the Masquerade, there's, millions of words of meta plot that occasionally get like a reference here and there, but more often than not, it's just literally us doing splatterpunk shenanigans because that's what we want and that's what's fun for us. But
Exactly.
the fact that but there's a lot of people who have a lot of arguments about what a particular piece of lore means, or what if a new edition of a book changed something and how terrible it is, and all the edition wars. And one of the things that games like this specifically avoid by explicitly not making certain things canon is that you can basically do whatever you want.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's what I liked about it. And I was able to get in touch with the Powered by the Apocalypse creators, and
Mm-hmm.
I did get permission to use their logo. So we're all
Fantastic.
good there. I reached out, they're aware of the game, they're cool with it. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, so we're very excited for that.
I would be too. Like that's a really fantastic way to make it easier on you as a writer and a creator so you're not having to go through all the various challenges of potentially having to fight through playtesting or people trying to take interpretations of your rules that you didn't necessarily intend, and malicious compliance and all of these other
Hmm.
things. But it sounds like you also did some extensive playtesting as well.
Oh
Like
yeah.
how did that go
Yes.
specifically for this? Was it primarily for like some of the scenarios, or like what kind of things were you looking for when you were playtesting?
Um when we started this, the idea was not that I was going to go to Kickstarter. The idea was just that I was going to put on drive-through. There was going to be no advertising. It was just for us. And it was my husband that said, I think that this is good enough that other people would like to see this game.
Right.
So in the meantime, we were just running it for our own small group, and they were just one-shot mysteries. They dealt with an abandoned schoolhouse and a teenage girl who was a psychic without knowing it. They dealt with a haunted doll and spirit trying to kidnap children from a household. Terry, the one you ran.
Which one was that? Tell us more about that, Terry.
Yeah.
About the convicts from the asylum.
That were clowns.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
My sincerest apologies to anybody in the chat who might have a clown phobia.
That was terrifying. And then we did the one Terry specifically asked me to run one for Bunnyman Bridge, which is one because of the way I formatted it. That one we decided was going to be a good enough scenario to pass on to someone else as a one night game. And it's also an urban legend that, you know, people from our part of the States, a lot of people are familiar with. So that just made it some fun.
Yeah. That's not one that I'm personally familiar with, but I'm literally on the other side of the country. So
yeah, no,
I would
this
be
is
coming
our side.
Yeah, and I would be coming into that pretty much, you know, completely blind. I would have no idea what the heck you were talking about. But there would be lots of opportunities for you to, you know, not only you could even, you know, play the urban legends straight for me. Because at that point I'd just be like, I'm not gonna bother doing any research because I want to come into this cold and, you know, experience it for what it is.
Right. So yeah, that's what we did. And then Terry, we had some other plans that fell through. So Terry threw something together today. My husband has been trying to run this multi-session game for me since February, but something kept happening every time we tried to plan it. So he ran. It's cursed. It really is. So he ran last night, and we're gonna finish it tomorrow. And then Terry ran something for us today. So that's what we just had to grab scenarios. I honestly, when I do the play testing for my friends, I tend to pull from other media that I am very certain they don't know about, so that I can just copy those scenarios and they won't know it.
Yeah, and there are lots of different bits of media these days that people can pull from to really of inform a lot of these potential scenarios and things. Like there's the entire SCP website. Like
exactly.
You could like there's you're basically, you know, covered for any sort of campaign ideas for this game forever now. You're welcome.
Yeah. So but that's pretty much how playtesting went. We've had a couple people pop in and out, so we've had a couple classes that got to be tested. Yeah. We did a one we actually recorded last Friday, I think. And we just put it up, I think, on the LARPed YouTube and on our Facebook for people who wanted to see how a playtest worked.
Very cool. Now, Terry, you were also the lead playtester on this, correct?
Yeah, I would say that pretty much entails getting together groups of people to test in the game.
So but he also play tested as a GM as well. He's one of the only people that did do that. So, you know, he did it from the GM perspective. And he's been one of the only recurring characters as well. So we can see how that carries through from game to game.
Very cool.
But yeah.
So what was that playtesting experience like for you, Terry? I imagine it must have been just mostly a lot of cat herding, but like I imagine there were some specific things that you would be looking for just to kind of figure out ways that you might need to do some additional development later on. Like what kind of stuff were you looking for that, you know, may have gotten missed in the initial pass through?
So I was really looking for ways to break the game, as bad as that sounds.
It's
like
true.
Things that are going to make it so that the game couldn't function properly. So don't hate me, Alex, but like
I am
different
aware of what
scenarios.
you were doing.
Uh-oh.
different scenarios have come up. Like, for example, we talked about the skeptic. The
Mhm.
skeptic is a player that does not believe in anything, specifically paranormal. And then you have my character who's a 10-year-old psychic with a possessed teddy bear. And he's
Mhm.
like, I'm going to make you believe. So, how does PvP handle in a world
Mhm.
that is largely, you know, everyone's acting towards the same common purpose?
Mhm.
So, um, we have definitely stretched ourselves as players and GMs to make sure that everything can be addressed and handled. And, there's other elements as well, as far as what comfort level players are at when dealing with the paranormal and horror type stories.
For sure, yeah. I
You know,
mean, yeah, and especially when you're dealing with an environment where, the primary playstyle is intended to be more collaborative, and then you run into places where characters do end up at cross purposes. And, it could be easily just handled with role play, but if it comes down to mechanics, it's definitely a very different ball game.
yeah. I think the secret to it is that the spirit of the game is naturally in cooperative play.
Hmm.
But again, I would defer back to Alex's statement of it's up to GM interpretation as well. If you want to have a party that's just fighting itself and not, focused on solving the mystery or the paranormal investigation, then that's one thing. But generally, what we've seen is just hiccups that happen from consensual role play between,
Hmm.
adult characters. And everything has always been able to be resolved. And it's given more flavor to things
Right.
than I just want to fight you, who's stronger, someone's going to get knocked out.
Yeah, because this particular game doesn't seem to lend itself to that sort of heavily aggressive CVC style. It's really going to be more, difference of opinion or styles or, arguing over facts. It's not necessarily going to be like anything particularly dramatic that would require a punch to be thrown.
Right, right.
Exactly.
Typically, and honestly, the game is designed where it shouldn't work very well if your players are not working as a team. This the aim is that, and obviously people can do it however they want, but the aim is a very simple. Dr. Deittman is sending you out. You are the team that was put together. There shouldn't be a question of
Hmm.
why are you all here, what are
Hmm.
your motivations, and what are your goals. The goal is you are here to work together and do this thing.
Right.
GMs are free to make other plots and do it a different way and just use the mechanics. But this was just something where we want you guys to set out to go solve a mystery, go, help people, go do something, but you're working together.
For
And we're
sure.
going to have people have different moves and different abilities to do that. We restrict your move pool to be a very small move pool. That way one person shouldn't be able to do everything. Some people can. If you want to try to make a character that min maxes, that can do everything, you can do that, but it's not going to be as much fun
Yeah,
for you and your team.
for sure.
So we
That
brought in a
acts.
few people,
Go ahead.
sorry. We brought in a few people that have very little RPG experience.
Hmm.
And one of the funnest things that I have done is create a character that is themselves playing in the game.
It is
So
hilarious.
I have a
That sounds
friend,
wonderful.
his name's Manny, and I put him in the game. He's an intern. He has intern-like abilities, and he brings the equipment. He drives the rig.
Hmm.
But these are all like common sense moves and things that he would want to do that just apply into the game.
Right.
Yeah, so he, like, that character most of the time, he's one of the ones that will pull out, and he knows all of the equipment. So he'll be like, I'm going to pull out my K2, or I'm going to pull out my IR thermometer, and I'm going to go do this. And
Hmm.
it's just great because it's exactly what he would be doing in real life, but he can do it in the game too.
Very cool. Now, for folks who are playing who may not necessarily be familiar with ghost hunting in general, I imagine you kind of go into a little bit of detail about some of the tools of the trade and some of the things that they can expect, or at least give a framework so that, they can at least say something that at least sounds authentic to not break immersion.
Yeah, for the most part, we will list things. So, like, for our example, our equipment, there's no real description with the equipment. We'll just say, like, you have a Ouija board and it gives you this, and you have a tripod and it does this. If you have, I don't know, like a spirit box, it does this. Mostly we hope that if someone's like, what's a spirit box? They understand that these are all real applications, so they can do a quick Google if they really wanted. But you also don't need to know what it does at all, because
For
you
sure,
might be
yeah.
playing a psychic who doesn't use any of these.
That's
So
absolutely fair, yeah.
like since it's real world, I don't feel like we have to put in like a bunch of like reference and lore, just because it's all real world.
Yeah. And I imagine that there's definitely going to be some people who, take a look at this and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is all stuff you can actually do in the real world, with the exception of some of the psychic things, obviously.
Exactly.
But then they're going to look at that and they're going to be like, huh, maybe I should try this ghost hunting thing out for real. And it has a gateway drug, and then you have more friends to go ghost hunting with.
Yes,
that's
I'm
really
honestly
did this,
hoping for that. Maybe on our Discord, maybe we'll be like, hey guys, we're gonna go book the Trans-Allegheny. Do we have 15 people who want to come with us? Like,
there you go, yeah.
Who knows? So, but yeah. So a lot of it's based in the real world. So we just figure, if someone really has a question, they could do a quick Google. But a lot of our moves and stuff, they're named after like pop culture references, because that's fun, at least for me. So,
oh no, absolutely.
Things like that. I have a lot of fun references in there for some people who like some niche media like I do. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, I think, coming up with the move types.
Fantastic.
And intention plays a huge part in the actual moves themselves. For example, the engineer can craft devices. You don't have to know what a device is called. You just say, I want to craft a device that's like the Ghostbusters and can capture a ghost,
For sure, yeah. I'm just kind of more interested in, like how much effort you're potentially putting into basically making this a not so subtle gateway drug into ghost hunting in real life.
Yeah, pretty much no effort.
No
Absolutely
effort.
none. I hope that so many people come out ghost hunting with us after this.
There you go. They may very well. And actually, we did talk about that a little bit more earlier in the stream, but I think I kind of want to come back to that, because there's definitely a lot of material there that I imagine, not only did you pull from, but you've probably had a lot of really fun experiences just doing it. So Alex, you mentioned you've basically been to locations pretty much, at least outside of the United States, if not all over the world. What location that you've gone to specifically for ghost hunting has been the most interesting for you, and why?
So let me preface this by saying I have done some of the big ones. Like I said, I've done Lep Castle, which was great. I was supposed to do Poveglia, but that fell through twice. That was just a disaster overall. Someday I'll get there. I've done Waverly Hills. I've done the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum twice. I've done just some of the big ones, like on this part of the country at least. The place that I love to go to, that I keep booking and keep going back to, because every time I go, I get something, is this little place in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, which is just about 40 minutes north of me. And it's been on a couple shows, but it's not like one of the big ones. It's called Hillview Manor.
Okay.
And every single time I go, I get something. And for me, it's been the best location. It always has a certain atmosphere, and I love going. It's the only place that I have been, except for the one private residence when I was like 14. It's the only place where I've ever been touched, or believe I've been touched. I understand that some people won't believe that, and I get that. So I've heard music playing, we've heard shouts, we've heard people talking, weird like moans, possible movement, like tripod movement. Like we've just had interesting stuff happen. So every time where I start to be like, maybe the paranormal's not real, I'll just go there and I'll be reminded.
There you go. It's always kind of nice to have that kind of validation in a way. You just go back and you're like, no, this is why I do what I do, and it's just so fun. Yeah. How about
That's
you,
my
Terry?
favorite.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Terry, what's yours?
So in Florida, there's this place that's called Care City, and it's in the middle of the Ocala forest. No cell phone reception at all. It's a town from like the 1850s or something really, really old. Um, and like they literally have an old post office and all of these things. It's run by a man in his 90s and his wife. And you can actually rent these buildings out if you want to stay there and like hunt and things, because it's just in the middle of the wilderness. And having been there a few times, one, the number of places, like there's a whole bunch of different buildings you can go into that just have so much history about them. I love that. But also, like, that's probably the scariest moment that I've ever had in paranormal investigation. When, because we like to wear headlamps, kind of like this, so that you can see things in the dark, but not use your hands holding a flashlight. And I'm in this house, and all of a sudden, something just rips it off of my head. And I was incredibly creeped out. I immediately tried to justify it by, oh, I must have knocked my head against this or that or this. But it's always been in my mind of, you know, how did that really happen? And was it a true paranormal experience or not? But it's just a
Mine, it's funny. Mine, like I said, mine best one was touching as well. But that seems scary. That what happened? That seems like aggressive and scary.
Well, I like to go off by myself, which is very unlike most people that go. Most people like to stay in a group and you have a good time. I'm just kind of like, if I see or experience anything, it's not going to be around everyone right now. So I'll kind of like disappear and go off on my own.
See, oh, that's okay. So that's so funny. We have very different views on how this should happen. I don't believe anybody should go off by their own. Pairs, fine. One for safety, that I think it is a bad idea because some of these places are very poorly maintained. So for safety, you should never go alone. But they also say at least if you have one other person, if something happens, you have a better chance of validating it. You know,
For sure.
My instance with when I was touched at Hillview, there were 5 of us. And we were all in a group in a narrow hallway that has always made me uncomfortable. And one of my friends had a flashlight pointed at me. So like she was standing there with a flashlight pointed at me, and I'm very short. I'm 5 foot. You know, I'm very short. Bats don't bother me. They're too high up. There were no bugs. My hair was pulled back. It wasn't caught on anything, and I had something just caress my head. And I was like, I think I'm gonna go sit downstairs. It did not help that this hallway, they were talking about something very bad that happened to a woman. And then they're telling me this, and I got caressed on my head. And I'm like, I think I'll go sit downstairs. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I would probably want to be like, yeah, no, I'm staying away from that. No, thank you. Yeah.
So I don't go in that hallway. Not anymore.
That's absolutely fair. I would not want to do that either if I were in your shoes. Oh my goodness. So it seems like you do a lot of your ghost hunting specifically on the East Coast. Have you done anything on the West Coast?
I have not. I've never actually been out west.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I have locations I definitely want to get to. There are a couple ghost towns I would love to hit up. But I just have to get out there. I've just never gotten out to the west.
Well, if you find yourself wanting to explore things specifically in the San Francisco Bay Area, give me enough time.
Oh, there are plenty. Yeah,
we
there's
have
lots
a guest
out there.
room. I'm actually it's a guest room / office. It's actually where I'm streaming right now. It has a bed. Our couch sleeps 3. Like we can make that happen for you.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about this stuff, I feel like we should really talk about our most recent experiences, Terry, because they were good stories. Both the Lake Shawnee and the Trans Allegheny, although you only heard that part. Would you like to start with the Lake Shawnee?
Okay. So Lake Shawnee Amusement Park, it has a very interesting past. A while back, they did some like digging, or they were going to try to build something, and they found that there was a lot of Native American, just things that were there. So they actually halted everything that they were doing and brought out archaeologists, which kind of just found a whole bunch of like artifacts. And so they stopped doing things there. But in the past, it was, an amusement park, and several different times it went through changes of ownership. They have a big memorial there for a couple of children
Mhm.
that were killed in the past. Um, so as the owner of the property is giving us this tour and he's telling us all about it, he tells us that there is this Ferris wheel and it's kind of like dilapidated, falling apart, covered in vines, like nature is overtaking it again.
Right.
He says, well, at this time, and I think it was like 1:13 or 2:13 in the morning, he said, this is when you're going to start to hear like carnival music and you're going to get all of your activity. So, fun fact, there was a cat there that lived in the haunted mansion and it followed us around.
Okay.
We had brought like camping stuff, so like hot dogs and s'mores, and the cat was so starved that it was like, give me a piece of your hot dog. It was drinking out of puddles. Anyway, it came home to my house with me.
Yeah, they saved it.
Aw,
They
that's
rescued it.
good. That's good.
But
Do you
at
still have
about
that
the
cat?
time, I do.
Yay!
It's in another room.
Aw.
It's a great cat.
Before he goes into what happens next, we had been taking shifts with the fire, because you know, fire safety, everybody.
Of
We've been
course.
taking shifts with the fire, and we decided, you know what? It's cold. We're getting tired. Let's put the fire out. Let's pack up our cars, and we will go out as a group. So all night, at no point had we actually been as one group together. So, but now we're when he's gonna pick up here, we are all together in one group.
Gotcha.
Oh, you can just finish it, Alex. I don't remember the name of the song or anything.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
So we're out. We're between the Ferris wheel and this like swings, and we're playing carnival music. And then we stop, like we're playing it on our phones, and then we stop, and then we're listening, and then we all start looking at each other because we hear more music, and we're like, do you hear that? And then we're all like bewildered. We're like, there is no way that this actually worked, right? Like, this is no way. We're listening. The music is getting louder and louder. And then I realized that it was Metallica's Master of Puppets. And then there was a light in the one corner where they said like a dark shadowy figure was. It was by like they call it like one of the gates. There was a light coming towards us. So the music is blaring, there is a light. We're all standing in the dark. Like we had turned off all of our lights. It is complete dark where we are. So we're like, okay, someone is on the property. We have the property. Nobody is supposed to be here. One of my husband's greatest fears, like he's always says that his biggest concern is not that there's a spirit, it's that there is someone on the property we don't know about with a weapon. So we're looking at each other like, what do we do? So luckily we had been on the property all night. We knew the property pretty well. Also, fun fact, I think it was the firefly larva maybe that glows in the dark. Didn't know that. Learned that night because our whole pathway back to the car had glow in the dark larva all over it. So we were able to follow the path back in the pitch black to get to our cars because we pretty much had to decide, like, are we going to make it back to our cars? We had water, like a little body of water between us and our cars. And we're basically like, are we going to make it to our cars before whoever is on the property makes it to our cars? So we booked it back in the dark. We kept all of our lights off so they couldn't tell where we were. We ran to our cars and we took off because we didn't know what this person's intentions were. Well, it's a long drive to get out. And then Terry, you think you saw them, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's just this guy who's like bald and he's walking along the side of the road with like early hours of the morning with this like stereo system slung over his shoulder. And I'm like, do you think that could be what we heard?
It was after 2:00 in the morning. Like, it made no sense. It was super weird. Like I said, just one of our greatest fears. And so we just took off and we're like, all right, this was just a little much. This is why I only book location, like it was nerve-wracking. Anyhow, 3 days later, we were at another location, the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. And we were with some other people at that point. And Terry's group was sitting on the first floor in the lobby on the other side of the building.
Right.
While my group was coming down, we were leaving like the women's criminally insane wing.
Right.
We were walking, and I can tell this story without crying now. We were walking, and we're just heading around. You come out of the hallway and you have to make a U-turn.
Right.
I'm leading the group to make the U-turn to go down the steps. I do that, and then there's this really loud noise. Loud, really loud. And I stop and I stand there and I turn like, what's that? The two ladies behind me, one of them was a couple months pregnant. They're arm in arm. I hear one of them hit the ground. So I turn like, what's happening? I hear my other friend. She goes skidding. She can't decide where to go. She skids. She falls to the ground. Her fiance, who's wearing a backpack, he takes off running, stops, takes off running another direction. He's just running around, doesn't know where to go. My husband is holding a tripod, and he's holding it like a weapon. Like he's ready to. Oh gosh! Like he's ready to attack someone.
Because that will totally
help. Right? Which is why in the game tripod gives you a +1 to strength. Because of that moment.
That's fantastic. Hey, improvised weapons, right?
Right. So my friend with the backpack turned up the spirit box, which is, it's weird because it had not been working all night. The spirit box turned on with the speaker at full volume, and that it's just a loud static noise. So it just heard it. He's like, I started running, but then I realized the sound was following me, so I just thought, I guess I'm gonna die.
Oh no!
So I turned around and I looked to check on the two ladies, like, oh my god, I hope the woman who's like a couple months pregnant didn't just get thrown to the ground. Turns out she threw the other woman to the ground in like self-defense and took off running.
Oh no!
The only one that actually went, I wonder what this is. Better go investigate like we're here to do, you know? And so we're all, at that point, we start laughing. I thought I was going to be sick. I was laughing so hard. And Terry, who is on the other side of the building, we come down and he's like, are you guys okay? Were you screaming or what?
Screaming with laughter.
Screaming with laughter. So exactly like 3 days after we were running in terror from one location, I was dying of laughter, and it was almost at the same exact time of night, like within a couple minutes. Like it was eerie, but oh my gosh, it was so funny, and it's one of my favorite ghost hunting experiences ever. Now, like I loved it so much, it was so funny.
Yeah. Now I imagine there's also like a lot of like, since you're doing a lot of this at night, because that's usually when a lot of these happen. I imagine you nap well before you go in, specifically so you're not going in, you know, sleep deprived or anything like that, just so you can be as clear-headed as possible.
Some of us do. Some of us decide, I'm just gonna stay up for 48 hours. Not me. I need to sleep.
I was about to say.
Not me. I book an Airbnb nearby. I go and I sleep in the morning, like for a couple of hours before I leave. Like, yeah. Not everybody. Some people drive 8 hours to get there, investigate all night, and drive 8 hours back.
Yeah.
Terry.
Oh, shots fired.
I was the passenger. When you go with people that have to work next day.
Yes.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, actually we had some folks in the chat who definitely kind of shook their finger at Terry earlier, specifically the concept of don't split the party. It's a big rule with RPGs and horror movies, and I feel like it applies doubly here.
Well, you have to remember how I got into the whole thing, like people being dramatic, and talk about a Charlotte in class.
Yeah.
Like the people that I would go with would scratch themselves and throw themselves downstairs and say, oh my gosh, I just got scratched by a spirit. So
but
me always wanting to
works.
find, I always wanted to find authentic evidence. So the only way I was ever going to do that was being by myself.
Right. That's fair. So.
But it's a good time.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. So basically, you went to Kickstarter with this particular game, and it sounds like it's your very first Kickstarter experience.
It is. It
So,
is.
um, how is that going for you?
It
Uh,
is going very well.
okay. Um,
Um,
There's like a dance every time we get subscribers.
yeah, pretty much. We check constantly when we've had two people I think pull out pledges for one reason or another,
oh
and then we
no.
cry. Uh, but it happens.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's probably not happening terribly often, but when it does
No,
happen, it's
no,
kind of meh.
no. Yeah. And yeah, I imagine I don't know. I hope that it's not because I update too frequently and I scare people away.
Oh, definitely not. In my own experience with being a Kickstarter backer and working with a bunch of different projects, you're doing fine in that front.
Oh,
You're
good.
updating with good, solid, quality content, and you're keeping people informed, and it's great. And I'm not just saying that because I saw the flyer that I put together for the social media piece of it, specifically in the Kickstarter update. Not gonna lie, I did a little happy dance when I saw
Oh well, good, good.
that.
Yeah. No, it's going very well. It is my first Kickstarter, but like I published my book last year, so I'm familiar with the book production fulfillment. So,
Mhm.
it's not like that's something that's new to me. I'm using a distributor that, while they might not be the cheapest, to me they are the most reliable. So I'm going to use them because I know that the books will be good quality and they will come very quickly. So that was an active decision.
Mhm.
I do run blockbuster LARPs every now and then, so I, like putting on events and shows and hitting deadlines and things like that. Very familiar with that. So it's my first Kickstarter, but it's not my first big project.
That's fair. And actually, Flama Mysteries, I'm saying that right, right?
I say Flamma, but I'm also from Pittsburgh, and everything I say is very nasally.
That's fair. I haven't busted out the yins yet to tease you, so you're fine.
Yeah, that's that one. I have my whole life. I've sworn I will never do that.
but one of the productions that was actually specifically of interest that was coming out of your group was Stormwrecked.
Yes, yeah, we had to
I
postpone it last year.
mhm.
But it's right now we are set to run. I have had very good reception from our players. Just about everybody has carried over.
Fantastic.
We've had to have some changes with people pulling out and budgeting changes,
Mhm.
and venue requirements changing. But overall, yeah, we're on track, and that's running over Halloween weekend. Terry will be there playing as the Commodore, the head of the Navy team, and we're very excited for that.
That's really cool. Unfortunately, I have a scheduling conflict. I think the next weekend I'm actually going to be in Idaho with A More Perfect World with Peculiar Crossroads. But if I did not have
Hmm.
that conflict, that would be how I would be spending my Halloween. Because Pirate LARP?
It's
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's on a beach, we're on a resort, we're very excited. So
That's very
at the
cool.
very least, even if people are like, the LARP was okay, at the very least you can say, well, I did get to have a pirate beach party like for Halloween. So,
Yeah,
I feel like it's a win-win for everybody.
that's absolutely fair. Like, and
So
honestly, like, that sounds fun to me. But, like, I also kind of want to do LARP too.
yeah, I mean, I hope people will have fun with everything we
Yeah.
have
And
planned.
I'm hoping that it is successful enough that you do future runs because I would like to get in on that personally.
Yeah, yeah, we have right now we have a tendency to do one and done. So I'm not really
Yeah,
sure what the future's going to hold for us.
that's fair.
But we're going to try to do our very best to
Hmm.
put on the best production we can.
Yeah. And actually, funnily enough, Alex, you and I actually met at a similar
Yes.
blockbuster LARP experience, specifically Real Royalty. We didn't actually talk at all during the event, but we met there. And the minute we
Yes,
saw
yeah.
pictures of each other in costume, we're like, "Oh, that person!"
Yeah.
Because that's how it run. That's how usually these sorts of things run. If you're going to a LARP, you may not necessarily immediately recognize somebody, but then you're like, "Oh, you played so and so," and like the costume
Exactly.
picture will immediately click. But
Exactly.
yeah, because I was a blonde in that, and that just yeah, I'm not a blonde. Well, I am a blonde under the pink, but
Yes,
only because
yeah.
I have to bleach to get to the pink.
Exactly, exactly. And I had wings that were so big I hit everybody with them. So
They were
that's how
gorgeous
people
wings,
remember
though.
me. Yeah,
They
they
really
got
were.
pretty beat up by the end, but it was worth it. But
Mhm.
Terry and I actually met through LARP, and so that was a great experience, and I'm really
Mhm.
glad because like I at least I think so that we've become very good friends, and
Mhm.
I like having someone who is into a lot of the same stuff as I am, and we're go kind of people. So we're always looking for like, things to go do and things to plan and places to go travel to. So I can thank LARP for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And that's really just like how I think Alex and I work so well is kind of like partners in these things.
Mhm.
She creates the events and then I help bring the people to it. So
Mhm.
that's really what LARP is. It's about bringing people together to experience different games.
Yeah, I
And
had an opportunity to check the website a little bit ahead of time, and I was actually gonna ask you a little bit more about it. So yeah, great segue. Perfect.
yeah, so of course with COVID, we focused a lot on digital content
Mhm.
with the Geek Initiative. Stormbrick's run some digital things. The Game Theater with Dragon Thrones has run
Mhm.
things online.
Mhm.
And now that catharsis of COVID is it's kind of dissipating,
Mhm.
hopefully permanently, but who knows? And people can look at going to physical games again. There's just this exciting thing of like the Storm Wreck's going to happen
Mhm.
in November. There's there's a game in Texas, Worthwhich School of Wizardry, that we're going to be going to,
Mhm.
the LARP crew. And then next year we're looking at Outbound Hope, and they're supposed to be that same group is going to be releasing a LARP uh, that's kind of like Star Wars esque,
Okay, so
where
like a
you get
space fantasy
lightsabers
sort of
and
thing.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all of these cool games, and I'm just really excited. There's like Crux, which is a local LARP. It's based in Richmond that hosts in Pocahontas State Park. So
Mhm.
all of these different games, and I think that people are ready and eager to get back out there safely, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
September seems to be kind
so
of the big month that a lot of different companies are planning, a lot of their kind of comeback events for if you will. So we've got Gen Con going on with, an in-person and an online component. We've got a bunch of other groups. I actually have two LARPs on the books specifically for September, and they're both in Texas. Like to the point where I'm probably just going to find someone's place to crash and like stay in Texas for 2 weeks because it doesn't make sense for me to
nice.
go back and forth. Um, it's Fatal Bonds, and then before that is The Night in Question, which is still going. I hope. Um, Fingers crossed. But that seems to be kind of like the big time where a lot of people are kind of hoping that LARP will really start coming back, and so I'm really excited to see how that goes specifically. Um, so for LARP, actually going back a little bit, digital LARP is actually specifically how you and I met, Terry.
Yeah,
Specifically through the Geek Initiative with Tara Clapper, which was I always have fun with Tara's games, and uh, the experience that you and I had was definitely an interesting one to start off with. Basically, I ended up being kind of a fairy notary, and it was like, okay, you have all these things that you want, but there's really no way that we can enforce them the way you're phrasing them. So let's find a way that we can enforce it, but still give you what you want.
yeah, that was such a fun game.
It really
And
was.
the really cool thing I think that COVID has given us, one of the few benefits, is the ability to have these digital experiences
Hmm.
and to kind of make it more mainstream.
Yeah,
Because, for
absolutely.
example, like Alex lives in Pennsylvania, like I live in Virginia.
Hmm.
I never
I'm in
would have thought,
California.
yeah, at the beginning of this, like I never would have thought, okay, I'm going to see Alex 3 times a week on Discord and Zoom and play video games and meet up and go ghost hunting and different things, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely gives us an opportunity to find new ways to connect to the people who are close to us. And for a lot of us who already had friends who were kind of long distance anyway, it's definitely kind of cemented and validated that idea that you don't necessarily need to live close to someone to have them be one of your best friends in the world.
It's
Like,
true.
um, I have two people in my life who I specifically call brothers. One of them is in Arizona, the other one is in Georgia. And then, you know, I have a lot of friends in Texas who I'm actually going to be seeing in a few weeks, fingers crossed. No stream that on Saturday the 12th for that, by the way, because I'm going to be in Texas and I'm taking a vacation. But it's really cool that you can also, you know, forge new friendships, like this one right here. And it was
Yeah.
actually because Terry was the one who initially reached out to me and said, "Hey, you're doing these kind of interviews and whatnot." And this was even before the first one aired, where I was doing a stitch and bitch with game designers, which is kind of what craft services is basically turning into now. I've literally got people booked all the way through. I've already got people booked as far as July, to come sit with me and make things and talk about the things that they love and the games that they're making. So I actually kind of have Terry to thank for that. Um, I initially thought that the interview with Mighty Narwhal was just going to be a one-off, basically promoting a project that I was specifically working on. That one is also on Kickstarter. Um, and then literally the day of the stream, before it had even aired, Terry is like, "Hey, I've got somebody who should be on your stream." And it just kind of blossomed from there. And I've got some really great guests lined up coming in the future. And it's if anybody wants somebody to blame, it's all Terry's fault.
It's true. He's a lot to blame for a lot of things.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. Take credit.
No, I think that's when you talk about gifts that people have, like a shy person when it comes to, hey, let's do something fun and have a good time together.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. This is a great thing that you have going. I'm really excited how it just seems to continue to grow.
Indeed. Aww.
Hi,
Hugs.
Dylan.
Dylan is also heavily involved in a lot of the stuff that we do. He
Fantastic.
gets roped into everything.
Yes. Now, for those of you who are watching, that's not actually a ghost. That's a real person.
That
Terry
was
just had a virtual background.
Although it would be very thematic if we were like, no, definitely a ghost.
Well, shoot, I should have thought of that first. Oh, I'm sorry. I've completely blown the mystery. I am your skeptic, ladies, gentlemen, and otherwise. Mm. But
But yeah, it's a good time.
absolutely. So, when specifically is the Kickstarter for the Deittman Files going to be wrapping, so people know how long they have to kind of get their budget together, figure out their finances, and put some money towards this because this is an awesome project.
We are ending on June 4th, so it was
Okay.
May the 4th to June 4th.
Very cool.
We did pick a geek day to start. We figured May the
course.
4th was a big day for geeks. So
Indeed.
we were just running for exactly the 1 month period.
Very cool.
And we our book is basically just undergoing some final revisions and it's pretty much done. Our artist is getting art to us. We're releasing some of it as it comes out. We have a couple pieces lined up still to release.
Indeed.
And pretty much once we have the art in, the book itself is ready to go. We have just unlocked the next stretch goal, so I have some artists lined up to work on maps. So we are just working on getting some final little things, mostly like little graphics and stuff to help fill some of the space in the book. And a couple of nice graphics for our stretch goals. And then we hope to have our books sent to the printer in mid-June. And my printer is Ingram Spark. So I know at least my novel's printed from Pennsylvania. So I'm hoping that it's going to come from the same location. So they will come to me from another Ingram Spark that has a printer in PA. So I'm hoping I'll get it from the PA location again. The turnaround time is pretty quick. So hoping that if we send it to the printers in mid-June, we will have the physical books at some point in July. But we're not planning to ship physical products until September, just so we have some extra time to go through proof copies to make sure everything looks great before we settle. We don't want to rush on that.
That
but
absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
Right. But our PDF delivery, we do hope to put out in July once we have all of our artwork in.
That sounds fantastic. And so
yeah.
And it's actually really kind of nice to see a lot more companies going back to a traditional print run. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with print on demand. Like if that's what works for you, then like go all out. Like, do what makes sense for you and your budget. But I do like the fact that we do have other folks who are out there specifically trying to go in and use more traditional print run methods.
Yeah, and I like so like with my novel, it's the paperback is POD, but the hardback is only through, like, you can only get it through me, which is why the hardback is in the Kickstarter, because it is not available anywhere else. I'm the only one that can order a hardback run.
Okay.
So that's what we're going with the Kickstarter, where we're gonna put it up. Right now, I don't know if we're gonna do a paperback POD. It is, we'll do the PDF, put the PDF so that people can continue to get that. But I like, for game books in particular, I really like the feeling of a hardback book, mostly because I tote them around everywhere and I'm gonna beat them the hell up. So I
Yeah.
want a hardback. So that's why we decided to do the Kickstarter for a hardback, was just so that if people really were interested in that, they could also get one.
That sounds phenomenal. And
So
that said, like, depending on some of these books, you can either have a rule book that you can literally use as like a very heavy bludgeoning weapon, or you can go something, light melee, which seems like what you're kind of going
exactly
for if you're doing a Powered by the Apocalypse game. There's not going to be a whole lot
right.
of bulk or source material about it. So you can just, whip it out, get a quick smack in there if somebody's, being out of line, and there you go.
Right now, our book is looking, it's about 50 pages before we add in our sessions. When we hit the sessions, we might end up closer to like 75. We might hit more like 80 or so if we get to the spirit and if we get this other class added in as well.
For sure.
And we are looking, I'm thinking we might do an add-on for physical GM resources. So all of the sessions are coming, they'll be in the book. There will also be in the PDF for people to print off. But we're thinking about maybe doing a limited add-on for anybody who would like a folder mailed to them of Deittman file material. So,
Ooh,
like, if you would like
cool.
all of our, you would get all of them in one. So you would get the Bunny Bridge, you would get the Maple Hill Asylum, and you would get the Donovan Estate, plus the map compendium. You would get a literal file marked confidential, stamped Deittman files, filled with nice copies with, like, print, like we would have a nice like a print off of like the articles. We would have all of our like Polaroids printed on nice glossy material, things like that.
For sure.
Basically we would just make it so that if you as a GM just want it ready to go, you can.
That sounds phenomenal. And honestly, like, that's something that you don't see a whole lot of anymore. Like, there's definitely a nice tactile feeling to a lot of this stuff, but because there are a lot of materials that are going to digital, which makes it accessible to a lot more folks. Like, I'm not knocking digital but at the same time, there's just something about the feel of, having the book in your hands. It's great.
Yes. Yeah. So we are thinking about doing that. And then finally, the last thing we have is our add-on for the physical cards. So we had this idea where all of the character classes would be modeled off of kind of like a tarot card style. So each class is the character art, and then it will say like the researcher, the medium, things like that. And an artist is doing all of them in the same format, and she designed a lovely back for it, and we're actually going to go have them printed, so that people, if they want, they can do an add-on of the actual physical cards. And I have this idea in my mind where like the GM will just be like, pick a card, any card, and you'll pick your character class from
That's
the
fantastic.
cards.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
Like, that's what I have this idea in my mind, and I hope people will do this and like tell me how it goes, because
I kind of want to do that now.
like,
that said,
like, or if they were like, all right, time to multi-class, which 2 classes, and you pick 2 of them, and you're like, oh, I got the psychograph in the intern, interesting.
Yeah. So quick segue real quick. We actually got a raid in from One Silver Key. It was a raid of 3. Every raid counts. Ooh. So thank you for that. And so yeah, I'm actually kind of curious how multi-classing would work in that system. I want to say that some games like Dungeon World do it, but I haven't done it personally, and I haven't really seen that done specifically in Powered by the Apocalypse game. So how would that work specifically in your game?
We've made it so it's very easy for the most part.
Mhm.
So there's the two archetypes, the psychics and the investigators.
Mhm.
So psychics pretty much have all of the moves of the psychic pool available to them.
Right.
There's just some special rules about your advanced move, which is supposed to be your powerful class move. So like I won't get into the crunchiness, but you would have one advanced move, and that would be your actual class. So if you took the fiery fiend as your advanced move,
Mhm.
that you are a pyrokinetic, that is your base class.
Got
But then you can take abilities from any of the other psychic classes. However, if you want to take an ability from the investigator class, it costs twice the buy value.
Got it.
Just to discourage people from fully multi-classing. But GMs are welcome to do away with that rule if they really want, especially if
yeah.
you're doing the tarot card method of pulling cards to choose abilities.
Mhm.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how we did it. So you have the entire move pool available for you. It's just some of them are a little more expensive to buy.
Mhm. And it's kind of interesting that you're comparing it to tarot there, especially for, divination purposes. Um, Potential side idea. I don't know if you're already thinking about this, but if you actually wanted to use those like classes specifically as like a small divination deck, like how would you interpret that? I'm kind of
I
curious now.
I think I would have to consult an expert on that because I am not familiar enough with how you could do it with like right now we would only have 16 to 18 cards. So knowing that a usual deck is much bigger, I thought
Mhm.
about like trying to replicate a deck, but I'm like there's no way I can get this many,
Mhm.
like pieces for it. So
Mhm.
I'm just gonna use it as my like layout and theme idea. But if
Mhm.
anybody has ideas out there of how to do that, you just let me know.
I know some people I can put you in contact with.
It would be really
Well,
cool.
I know there's going to be one card that has a Philip P. Kitten on it. And
Mhm.
so that's the card that if you draw, it means all of your wishes are going to come true.
Okay, that's apparently canon. That's apparently what that
Uh-huh.
means now.
And here I was going to compare it to the tower, which is the everything is terrible card.
Oh yeah, I mean that's honestly probably more realistic, but
I love you, Terry. Oh, that could also be another interesting potential stretch goal depending on how much you want to get into the distribution and product management of it. Philip plushies?
Philip dolls? Oh gosh.
Yes.
well, the problem is that the Philip plushie is a real plushie
Mm,
that is out there in existence, and I know because that household has two of them.
Yeah. So there's
that's
a
fair.
really funny story around just Philip in general.
Oh yeah, please tell.
So I had gotten Philip as a gift for my friend Manny, who
Mhm.
ironically plays this game as Manny.
Mhm.
And we were traveling. He thought that he lost this teddy bear. And I don't know why, but it
No.
was like, it was a really special teddy bear because one of the eyes was imprinted lower than the other,
Mhm.
which made it really unique. And like its whiskers and whole face was kind of tilted. So he was kind of disfigured in a sense, if you want to consider it that. He was imperfect, which made
Oh,
him special.
of course.
So Philip disappeared. He was really upset. He called the hotel. He talked to housekeeping. He talked to the manager. He pulled a complete Karen trying to get this teddy bear back, and he couldn't. So
Mhm.
I reached out to the manufacturer and I was like, hey, can you help me out? Like, this is a very special teddy bear. It's not made anywhere anymore. And they
Mhm.
were like, let us see what we can do. At the same time, I looked on eBay and found one. So then the manufacturer sent me one, giving us a real Philip and an imposter Philip.
Of course.
Yeah, so every time we're playing and Terry pulls out his Philip for Damien, his character, Manny on the other side pulls out the other one and goes, that is the imposter. This is the real Philip.
Oh my gosh,
Every
it's
time.
adorable. That sounds hilarious. Um,
It's a good time. Manny
I
has an ability called a trigger effect.
mhm.
So he's got that, whereas Philip with Damien is kind of like a um, a medium tool. Like it feeds him ideas, I guess.
It's like a Tony
Mhm.
in The Shining. That's
Mhm.
what I think of, Tony.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And
But
now I
yeah.
have to Now I have to go watch The Shining again because that's just who I am as a person.
I mean, it's a good movie.
Red rum. Red rum.
But yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of it in a
Yeah.
tasty material and content inside that we have chewed on and devoured and really kind of gotten into a whole lot. And it's like
honestly,
getting a nice toasted
yes.
almond tort.
Exactly. Ooh. Well, shoot. Now and now
So now you need an almond tort in The Shining.
Or maybe there's a hazelnut cream pie at Sherry's, which is a West Coast chain that does really, really good pies. So I might want to actually go seek that out. But then again, the choice for dinner is actually not up to me because it is my partner's birthday today. So happy birthday, David. I love you dearly.
Happy birthday.
If you are watching,
Happy birthday.
Philip says happy birthday. Considering the small army of plushies that we have between the two of us, Philip would be right at home. So I don't necessarily have a choice as to where we go for dinner because he's the birthday boy. He gets the choice, and that's okay. And but if I can get that hazelnut cream pie, I will absolutely take it.
Oh yeah.
So we're starting to kind of come down to time, but I do want to, well, obviously, thank you for coming and talking with me.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, yes, absolutely. This has been wonderful. I've learned so much more about ghost hunting that I never would have even thought to ask. And this,
well, if you're ever out in our
way.
direction, just let us know because
I'm a coward by nature, so I don't know how well that would go over.
It is usually it is not nearly as scary as they make it on TV. It is a lot of sitting in the dark, asking. It's like being on a Zoom call. Are you there? Can you hear me? It's a whole lot like that.
You're on mute.
That's pretty much exactly what ghost hunting is. So
okay, well, I will keep that in mind. And like I said, if you find, other locations here on the West Coast and we can make the timing work,
for sure.
I've got a couch you can crash on.
It would be fun.
Yeah. So, got the Deittman Files Kickstarter going all the way through June 4th. We've got Storm Wrecked over Halloween weekend for awesome pirate LARP goodness. Are there seats still open available for that? For those who might be interested in the audience or watching the VOD?
We cut the size down.
Okay.
Just so that for COVID and restrictions and everything, we wanted it a little smaller group.
Okay.
So I think we're going to be running at about 55, I think, with our staff. Mostly outdoor because a lot of it's on the beach, and we have one ticket left, and it is for a female character that dropped out. So we have one ticket left. We have one person who's interested.
Why must I have a conflict?
I know, right? But we haven't. It's not settled yet. We haven't been pushing it just because it's a pre-written role and it's going to require a certain person who wants to fill it. So we haven't been pushing it yet. But that is our last one. So
well, if you get somebody to get that last ticket from this stream, I will tip my hat to that, and that's part of the reason why we do some of this stuff. Is we have a lot of really creative folks in our community who do cool things. And of course, we also have LARP.com, which is, showing us all these amazing resources, and not just, games themselves, but also tools specifically on how to run games, how to take care of yourself before and after games, and a lot of really great resources for player safety. And my hat is actually off to the LARP.com staff for having such great resources on their website. I promise I can talk.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, LARP.com has been integral for getting a lot of the Deittman File stuff off the ground. So cannot thank the crew enough.
Fantastic. And there's, it's also entirely possible that we could potentially get the LARP.com crew here on another show at some point to talk specifically and exclusively about LARP.com and the kind of things that they do. I personally would love that, Terry, but that really depends on scheduling, right?
Yeah, that could be fun. We've got so many personalities. I think just one of the main goals is getting a diverse group of people together to go to different games, and like
Absolutely.
it's interesting, just the collection of people that you become friends with, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you're attending different events with them, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I just saw you there, and now I see you
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Sometimes you make
actually,
such good
yeah,
friends that you decide to go to Iceland together.
that's actually that is a very good example. I actually initially was not planning on going to Real Royalty where we met because I was like, okay, I've got this other convention going on. It's going to be a tight fit and all these other things. And then I went to Armistice Arcane the previous
Mm-hmm.
January, and I saw such a massive overlap between the two player bases and met so many wonderful people at Armistice Arcane that I'm like, I need to go to this. I need to see these people again. And it was absolutely worth it. And I was able to make it work with the other convention as well. I was absolutely exhausted for the rest of April that year, but I made it happen. And that was actually also the year that later on we actually ran Mystical Rome
Oh
through
yeah.
Mighty Narwhal Productions out in Washington. I am running one shot of that tomorrow for a group that's literally. We actually do have an international crew because one of our players is from Canada. Um, but speaking of upcoming things and additional stuff you want to plug, um, Alex, where can people find you on the internet? Like, what other projects do you want to talk about that you want to get people psyched up for?
You know, I Stormwrecked has just taken up. I started planning it in January of 2019, so it has taken up a lot of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my biggest thing. And then the Deittman Files. I have alexandrafrundclinton.com, which has my book information, and when my book 2 is ready to come out, it'll go up there. I think I'm taking a break from big events for just a little bit, just
That's
because
fair.
this past year has been a lot. So, gonna do Stormrex and take it easy. We've got some big group trips planned for next year now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna, I think, just try to enjoy life for a little bit.
That makes
But
sense.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that'll last for all of like 2 months, and then I'll decide I'm planning something else because that's honestly what happens.
That yeah,
Um,
I understand that all too well. I
yeah,
really
we
do.
we do have, as Terry mentioned earlier, we have a Discord for the Deittman Files. Should be public if anybody wants to search it and join. We will be sending it out to the Kickstarter backers whenever we're ready to go, putting it on Facebook. But we're hoping to use that as a community to help people find players, like for
Hmm.
groups, and stay up to date and answer questions. So,
That sounds
that's going to be
great.
a good place to follow me.
And if we wanted to pick up a copy of Echoes and Ashes today, where would we go?
You can get it on Amazon. It's available for ebook and for paperback. Like I
Cool.
said, the hardback is the only one you can only get through me. So that one, if you are interested, you will need to back on Kickstarter for the psychograph level, which is I think we only have 20 left. So
There you go.
that is it. But that's the bulk of it.
Okay, Terry, where can we find you on the internet and what projects do you have coming up?
So you can go to larp.com or larped on Facebook, or we even have a Facebook community called the larp.com community. You can always find events and different things to do. There are events on our Facebook page. So if you're interested in coming with us and you're like, hey, I want to try this event, but I don't know anybody there, that's kind of what the purpose of what we're doing is, so that you can say, I'm going, and suddenly you have a whole group of friends who are also going, which is great for like first time attendees who might be going to a game that's been running for a while and is a repeat game. So you can definitely check that out. I think the next one we have coming up is Stormwrecked, Crux, Outbound Taupe. Um, just lots of great things.
That sounds great. And then you have, and then there's me. Hi, I'm HedgieCleric. You can find me here every Saturday from 4:30 to 6:30 Pacific, where I'm interviewing game designers and working on craft projects. Next week, I will have the Mighty Narwhal crew back, or at least part of the Mighty Narwhal crew back for World Goth Day, where we're actually going to be building a Mora genre online live. Um, and then on the 29th, I will have the crew behind a free game that's going to be coming out called Goblins Grabbed My Dice. It sounds about as absolutely crazy and madcap as you would expect. And then tomorrow, specifically, I'm going to be running a one-shot of Mystical Realm, which is one of the genres specifically for the Mora cinematic game system, which is also in Kickstarter. It actually started the day before the Deittman File one. So I'm going to be running that with a very full table. There's going to be 7 players and me. But everybody else is fantastic players. And speaking of fantastic players who aren't in this game, but also I adore, Wolfen Brother, happy birthday! He's here in the chat. Say hello and wish him a happy birthday, everybody.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Anyway, so you can find me here. You can find me at HedgieCleric on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If it's HedgieCleric somewhere, it is probably me. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us. And now we're going to be reading DJ Dirge, who is a goth DJ based out of Boston who does his streams about standard goth club time, Eastern time. So we're about to go do that now. So if you want to stick around and come with a raid, come with us. And we're having a raid coming, and 4, 5, 6, and there we go. And thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
And